Hello and welcome back to Java with John. Today, we are diving into one of the most fundamental concepts in programming where we're going to be covering arrays. So to make this particular concept crystal clear and relatable, we're going to tell a story that many of you might find familiar. So the story of a poultry farmer and their daily egg collection. So get ready to see how organizing eggs can teach us about organizing data in Java. Now, we have a problem that we're going to try to solve. So tracking many related pieces of data using individual variables becomes messy and inefficient. So think about this. This particular farmer collects eggs on a daily basis. So if we were to use the concept of variables, it would mean we're going to have maybe a variable for the eggs collected on a Monday, which we could give a figure. We could go ahead to the eggs collected on a Tuesday, which we could as well give a figure. We move on to the eggs collected on Wednesday. So eggs. And then we also give a figure, and so on and so forth. So we simply repeat this for 7 days. 7 days to close off a week, and and think about the 30 days to close off a month, and also think about the time period for a whole year. That's a lot of variables, and it's obviously going to become messy. Just like having eggs scattered all over the farm instead of in one place. So it's going to be hard to manage, it's going to be hard to calculate the totals or even find patterns. So this approach is going to be problematic for us. That is where arrays would come in handy. So we need a better way of grouping similar data together. Now, when it comes to eggs collection, we do have trays in the normal context of a farm. So before we go to the trays aspect of it, let's define what an array is. Array in Java is simply a container that holds a fixed number of values of the same type. Okay. Think of it like the trays of an egg in a poultry farm. So each tray is designed to hold a specific number of eggs, and that's 30 eggs. And each slot in that tray can hold only one egg of, or rather only one egg of the same type, data of the same type, basically. Now, the arrays that we're going to be handling today are one-dimensional arrays. So all items in the array must be of the same data type. So we're talking about either integers or strings. And the one-dimensional array is just like a tray, as we said. Now, when it comes to declaring an array, here is the syntax that we're supposed to be following. We have data type, which comes in first. Okay, so data type, followed by a pair of square brackets, followed by, now this case, the array name there. Or, that's one way, or data type, followed by the array name, and then that pair of square brackets there. That's how we can think about it, or rather that's how we declare the array. Now, when it comes to our poultry farm, the example which we have at hand today, we're going to declare an array. Let me just call it daily egg count for simplicity. And the point right now is just on declaration alone. Now, next, when it comes to array initialization, we actually have several ways. So this was declaration, of which we have our example right here. Then there is the other point of initialization there. So let's talk about a new array. So weekly egg counts, and then we can simply initialize this to look like that. So allow me to explain. We create an array to store the egg counts for the 7 days that we have in a week. Now, in this initialization, we're supposed to start with a data type, followed by the pair of square brackets to denote that this is an array, followed by the array name. Then, when we initialize the array, we actually give it a size. So it is already known that this particular array of ours is going to have exactly 7 elements. They can be below 7, but they can never go above 7. That's the most important point. That's one. Number two, we can be able to initialize the array variable, but also give it some initial values. So let's see if we were to have the weekly egg counts. We can come and just directly initialize the array. Let me disable this to avoid issues. We can directly initialize the array. So on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, on a Friday, on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday probably. So that's just random figures, but the point is the same. What we have done actually in this point is that we have declared the array, we have sized the array, and we have also passed the elements, the data that is supposed to be held within the array. That's very important to note. So what else do we have? When we use the new keyword, this point here, we are sort of creating an object, but it's really an array. Now, once we have the array declared, there is, okay, for the declaration part of it, this is fine, but without either initializing the array by sizing it, what we did here, or by passing individual elements to the array, this one is not going to help us as of now, because at some point we're just going to need to initialize the array. There are some properties and methods which we can use when it comes to arrays. So the first property that I would like us to talk about is the length property. Since we have our weekly egg count array, the length property, now every array has a length property that tells you how many elements it can hold. So with this, what we're going to do, I'll just add a print line statement here. Just a moment. Print line there. So we can track eggs for, then we can append or concatenate the array weekly egg count, calling the length property. It's a property, it's not a function. Then on the other side we have days. Since we know it's supposed to give us 7, so the entire statement is going to read, we can track eggs for 7 days. So that's one. With this, it is basically going to tell us how many days, or how many elements rather, we have within the array, and that's very important. So we can track eggs for 7 days. Now, next, when it comes to accessing array elements, we can actually be able to do that by using a pair, or the pair of square brackets. So they are always accessed using the pair of square brackets and with an index. So to access specific items, we always use that index. Arrays in Java are 0 indexed, meaning the very first element, in this case we have 45, is at index 0. The second element is at index 1, all the way. One way of thinking about it is that all elements in an array have that index, and we always say it's from 0 all the way to 1 less the size of the array. Since our array has 7 elements, the indexes are going to be running from 0 all the way to 6. Also very important to note that. It's possible for us to access elements at a specific index. So we know in the days, as we were counting, we started from Monday. So our week starts on Monday. So Monday we are sure is index 0. So say we want a Wednesday. So we're just going to have to count 0, 1, 2. So Wednesday is at index 2. To do that, we can just add a print line here, and then eggs collected for Wednesday, and then we can come and concatenate our array, weekly egg count, and then we add the pair of square brackets. So that pair is where we're supposed to add the index. So we are sure we are looking for index 2. So it's going to tell us on Wednesday the number of eggs that were collected, which is 48. It simply outputs or displays the specific element at that index. So that's another very important point. Now, it's also possible for us to modify a value. So let's say the count for that same day, Wednesday, was off. Instead of 48 eggs, let's say that particular day the eggs were much higher. We can give a figure of, say, how many eggs? Let's say 60 eggs. That's a total of 2 trays. So we can modify a specific element, and we'll do the same. Weekly egg count at index 2, because we're sure that's Wednesday. And then we're going to come and assign a value. I was talking about 60. So if we rerun the program, right now it's supposed to give us at index 2, instead of 48, we now get 60. So I'll just run it, and then we're going to get 60, the total eggs collected for that particular day. Okay. Now, there are some common operations that we can maybe do when it comes to arrays. And for instance, we can find the total eggs collected. Since we have our array, what I'll do is I could probably just get rid of this whole area. It was just for context purposes. We can declare a variable, and probably I can call it total eggs there. Then we're going to create a for loop. Let me explain something first as we create the for loop. Remember, the loop allows us to execute a block of code repeatedly. In the case of a for loop, we normally say for a known number of times. It's already known where we're going to start, where we're going to end. So when we declare the loop counter variable, we actually start from 0 because we would like to access all the elements that are within our array. Then when it comes to the test or the condition, it's also going to be very specific. As long as I is less than the weekly egg count dot length. So that means as long as it is less than 7 in the case of our array here. And then we update the loop counter variable at that point. Once we've done that, the key point is that we want to take 45 plus 52 plus 48 plus 51 all the way to plus 38 and have that total. That's very possible. What we're going to do here is take that variable, total eggs, which we had initialized to a figure of 0, and then we're going to add to it weekly egg count at index I, meaning for every iteration, pick that value and add it to the total that was there. So initially the total is 0. So we are taking 0 plus 45. In the next iteration, we're going to be taking 45 plus 52. In the next iteration, that's total plus 48. Moving on like that, over and over again. So we can go ahead outside the loop here and actually display the total. So total eggs collected for this week, and then we can come and append that variable called total eggs there. So when we run it, we can actually be able to see how many eggs were collected this whole week. So it has taken up the total of all this. Good. The other operation that we can actually carry out, as a farmer, I will want to keep track of how my chicken are laying eggs, and I'll want to know throughout the whole week which was my best day and which was my worst day. It's possible for us to do that. So here's what we're going to do. I'll just leave this one as it is, no problem. Then we shall just come down here and we continue there. I can create a max eggs variable. So the highest number of eggs that were collected, and since we need to initialize it to a value, a figure, I'm going to take the weekly egg count and then I'm going to say at index 0. So we're just going to give it a figure that is within our array, and essentially we are saying the highest number of eggs I collected throughout the weeks was 45, but it's just a starting point. Then next we're going to look at the lowest number of eggs that was collected in the whole week, so weekly egg count, and we're going to give it the same value, that is the 45. Then next I can actually create another variable which I can call best day. I can initialize it to 0, and then worst day, and I can initialize it to 0 as well. Now, in order for us to find let's say the total or the highest number and the lowest number of eggs, we're actually going to need a for loop. So allow me to copy this loop, because it's essentially going to be the same, but for the body we're going to do it differently. So I am allowed to reuse the I, there's no problem. Though, here's something I want to point out. We cannot start from index 0, because we have already assumed that the highest number and the lowest number is already found at that particular index. So I would like to move one index to the right and start from index 1. So we're going to be starting from 52, moving on all the way to 38. Next, we're going to do some comparison here with an if statement. So if the weekly egg count at index I, meaning for every iteration, simply check if it is greater than the max eggs, which is this variable that had held what we assumed to be the total or the highest number. So if within the rest of the array we find a figure that is higher than 45, take that particular variable and assign the value. So this is weekly egg counts at index I. Assign the value that you found or that we found to be the highest. Then we're going to take the best day, since we want to know which day it is, and then we're going to assign the I to it there. So we already know the best day. Next, we're also going to have another if. This is now a separate if. It's in no way related to the other one, but it's more or less going to be the same. So we take the weekly egg count at index I and we check whether it is lower than the mean eggs. So again, throughout the remainder of the array, check whether there is a value that is lower than 45. If a value is found, we'll do the same. Mean eggs, and then we come and assign the weekly egg count at index I right there. Then we take the worst day and we note which day that is, because we are just going to be passing the index to it. Okay, so before we actually get a printout, let's do something else away from the loop, because the loop ends here. It ends there. I would like to create another array. Let me just call it day name, and I'll also initialize the array elements here. So we were sure our week was starting from Monday, we go to Tuesday. Tuesday. We go to Wednesday. We go to Thursday. We go to Friday. We go to Saturday. And then finally we go to Sunday. So that we can at least be sure. Best day, worst day. Okay. So for us to now move on, or rather structure the output, let's see how we're going to do this. We can say the best collection day, best collection day was, we can say maybe day name at index best day, because we already have the specific index which we assigned at this point. Then we can continue with, let me get rid of this, with how many eggs. So we can take max eggs there. So we already have the best day, and for the worst day we are going to do the same. So worst day collection, worst day there, and then mean eggs there. So we get the best day and then we get the worst day. When we run it, this is what we're going to get. The best day is Tuesday with 52 eggs. The worst day is Sunday with 38 eggs. That is a true reflection of what we have within our array up here. So that's arrays. I don't think there is anything else up to that point. The most important point to note is that when creating an array, it would be very much possible for us to directly initialize the array, or you could declare, and after declaring, you could come up daily egg count, because this is compulsory, and then you assign and size. Let me just use the 7, size the array there. Once an array has been given the size, when you initialize the array by using the new operator or the new keyword, it actually means that that size will never change throughout the lifetime of the program. Think of a tray of eggs. It has exactly 30 slots, and there's no way we can add those 30 slots. It's possible to add 29 eggs. It's possible to add 10 eggs within that tray, but we cannot add 31 eggs. It's the same case when it comes to an array. So this is one part of arrays. There is so much more that we can do with arrays. What we're going to do is that this part of arrays is going to be actually a series of videos. So in the next one, we're going to look at how maybe to create a dynamic array, an array that doesn't have fixed values. So remember our poultry farm, it's just a well-organized egg tray, which makes a farmer's life easier. So arrays make our life easier by structuring our data. So they are fundamental building blocks for many programming tasks, from managing lists of items to building complex data structures. Please note, mastering arrays is a huge step forward in your Java journey. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into arrays. I hope the short story on the poultry farm has helped you to grasp this important concept. In our next video, we're actually going to look more into arrays, and we are still at the one-dimensional arrays. So before we move on to the two-dimensional arrays, we're going to ensure that we have everything captured within this. Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more Java tutorials, and leave any questions that you have in the comments below. So your feedback is very important to me, and it helps me to create better content for you. See you in the next one.